Welcome to Serenity and Fire, the podcast where wellness meets grit. I'm your host, Krista Guidenti, founder of Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique. Join me as we dive into the intriguing world of biohacking, clean living, cutting-edge spa trends, and the hustle, grind, and grit of entrepreneurship. From my personal battles with weight management, infertility, and a 30-year journey to create and launch my dream business, to building a sanctuary for those who have been touched by cancer, I'm here to share real talk, inspire big dreams, and spark a passion for holistic living inside each and every one of you. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Serenity and Fire. Today's episode was inspired by something really special. I was honored to be invited by Telhio Credit Union to participate in their Women's History Month panel discussion called Women Who Build. As I reviewed the questions for the panel, I realized something. These weren't just questions for this specific panel discussion. They were the kinds of questions every entrepreneur and leader should be asking themselves. Questions about leadership, about legacy, about community, about building something that lasts. So today, I want to walk through several of those questions and share my reflections as someone who has spent years building a business, building teams, and building something I hope will have a lasting impact on generations to come. Because building something meaningful isn't just about starting a business. It's about building people, systems, culture, community, and ultimately a legacy that lives long after you're gone. And one of the questions they asked was, what defining moment shaped your leadership philosophy? For me, it wasn't really a single moment. It was watching the people around me as I was growing up, especially my mom and my grandparents. And my sister and I were super lucky because we all lived with my grandparents almost my whole entire childhood. And between them and my mom, the three of them modeled some simple but powerful beliefs. Work hard and it will pay off. Never give up. You can do anything you put your mind to. Even through pain and failure, there is value. And one idea that stayed with me my entire life is the belief that our circumstances don't define us, our choices do. You see, leadership begins long before you've ever earned that title. It begins with how you show up, how you treat people, how you respond to adversity. And that philosophy of leading by example is still the foundation of how I live today. So another question that was asked is, what did you have to unlearn in order to lead effectively? For me, it was abandoning the belief that if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. And in the early stages of a business, that mindset can work, but eventually it becomes the very thing that prevents growth. Businesses cannot scale if everything depends on one person. At some point, leaders must make the transition from being the doer to being the builder. Seems simple, right? But so many business owners cannot get out of this mindset because it means that they have to trust other people, delegate responsibility, and they have to allow others to grow into their leadership roles, and being okay with those people making mistakes and even possibly failing. It's through these kinds of challenges that people learn and they grow. And if you're going to grow yourself and you're going to grow your business, you have to be okay with letting go a little. Another question from the panel was, how do you lead differently today than you did 5 years ago? The biggest difference for me today is that I constantly think about organizational capacity. And what I mean by capacity is the ability of an organization to function and grow without depending entirely on one individual. Early in a business, the founder is the capacity. If you've ever started a business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You solve the problems. You make every decision. You step in whenever something gets broke. You fill every single gap. You're in the day-to-day every single day. But if the organization never develops capacity beyond the founder, one of two things will happen. The business will stall or the founder will get burnt out. So real leadership is about expanding capacity. And the way you expand capacity is by developing people. That means training someone even when it takes longer than doing the actual task yourself, letting people make mistakes so they can grow, and allowing different leadership styles to emerge. Because every time you develop someone on your team, you increase the collective capacity of the organization. And that is what allows businesses to scale. It's the difference between a business that depends on one person and an organization that can grow far beyond its founder. And once you begin building real capacity inside an organization, something interesting happens. You stop thinking only about running the business today, and you start thinking about what this organization could become in the future. Because the moment your business can function beyond just you, you're no longer just operating a business. You're building something that could potentially outlast you. And that leads to a much bigger question. What kind of legacy are you actually trying to build? Which leads me to this panel question. When you hear the word legacy, what does it mean to you? For me, legacy means building something that becomes respected by all, that's first in class and is a leader in its field. Being a legacy business means that you set the standard in the industry. You are the subject matter expert. Your business is the one that all other businesses aspire to be like. And it's about creating a brand that can live on even after I'm gone. And at Panacea, we're not just simply trying to operate a spa. We're trying to create something that becomes a benchmark for wellness and a beacon of hope in the community. Something that elevates the entire industry and something that becomes a market disruptor. And along these same lines, I was then asked, what intentional decisions ensure your work outlives you? Well, legacy does not happen by accident. It requires intentional decisions. And for me, there are 3 such decisions. First, it involves building a memorable brand that people emotionally connect with. Second, it involves building systems and processes that allow the organization to function well beyond any single individual. And third, it involves developing strong brand advocates and ambassadors inside the organization. And what I mean by that are people who live and breathe what we do, who believe in the mission deeply enough to protect it and to evolve it long after I'm gone. Because legacy isn't just about what you build. It's about who carries it forward. And for me, I want whoever that person's going to be to believe in the brand and our mission as much as I do, if not more. Okay, so another question that was asked was, what relationship significantly changed your trajectory? For me, the answer to this question isn't actually a person. It's a character in a book. Her name is Emma Hart, and she's from Barbara Taylor Bradford's book, A Woman of Substance. I love this book so much, and in this story, Emma begins life as a poor servant girl in England. She's betrayed, abandoned, and left with almost nothing. But instead of accepting her fate, she builds something extraordinary. She starts with a small shop, and over time, she builds an international retail empire. What always struck me about Emma wasn't just the success, it was the discipline. She played the long game. She made strategic decisions. She rewarded loyalty, and she built something that would outlast her. That story reinforced a belief that has shaped my own philosophy. Your circumstances do not determine your future. Your decisions do. And I mentioned that earlier, that came from my grandparents and my mom. And I really do believe that. And one of the reasons Emma Hart's story resonates so deeply with me is because it's really a story about what it means to build something from nothing. Emma starts life with almost no power, no money, and very limited opportunity. But she does something many people never do. She begins thinking long term. Every job she takes is strategic. Every decision she makes is about building independence. She studies people, she studies business, she studies opportunity, and slowly, step by step, she builds leverage. A shop becomes 2, 2 becomes a chain. Eventually, she builds a massive international empire. And what's remarkable about Emma is that she never loses sight of her mission. She rewards loyalty fiercely. She protects what she has built, and she never forgets where she started. Emma Hart's story is ultimately about something every entrepreneur learns sooner or later, that building something meaningful requires patience, strategy, resilience, and the willingness to keep going when the world tells you you can't. So moving on to the next question for the panel, they asked, why is community involvement important to you as a leader? That's an easy one for me because I feel like everything we do at Panacea is all about the community, healing the people who live in it, giving them a place to disconnect, relax, restore, and rejuvenate so they can show up as the best version of themselves. And then I was asked, what role should businesses play in strengthening local communities? I think businesses should be anchors for the communities around them, and they should try to stay deeply connected to their community roots. They shouldn't just be economic engines, but they should be places that create connection, opportunity, and well-being. This is important to the community, and it's really important to us. And that's why we are intentional about supporting causes that connect deeply to our mission, but that also matter to the people we serve. Organizations like Cancer Free Kids, which I talked about recently, and the Cancer Support Community of Columbus is another one that we really love. We also like to support causes that are important to our clients and that they're personally connected to. And along these same lines, I was then asked, how do you ensure growth does not disconnect you from your community roots? For us, it really comes down to intentional choices. We hire locally, we really try everything we can to promote from within, and we host events that bring in our local loyalists and our community followers. We are also constantly networking with local businesses. And again, we support those great local causes like the ones I just mentioned, because if your business grows but your community does not benefit, something is definitely missing. So the next question I was asked is, where do you see opportunity even in uncertain markets? Well, the way I kind of look at this question is that the world today is incredibly demanding, emotionally, physically, mentally, and we are constantly being challenged to do more, do it better, and do it faster. We're inundated with stressors in our lives, and we are flooding our bodies with toxins. And businesses that can provide an escape and a solution for all of that will always matter. That is why I believe there's enormous opportunity in the health and wellness landscape. And at Panacea, we're creating more and more exciting ways for our clients to immerse themselves in the kinds of experiences that can address all of these stressors. What we provide is not just indulgence, it's restoration, it's recovery, it's healing. And in a world that's burning people out, that's always going to be relevant. So the next question they asked was, what should business owners be thinking about as they prepare for the upcoming year? I think there's really two major things. First, AI. Leaders should be thinking about how to incorporate AI into their businesses and how to leverage its capabilities. AI should enhance the people in your organization, not replace them. It can help with research, planning, forecasting, communication, identifying blind spots, and pressure testing ideas before you roll them out. But the goal should always be to use AI to build stronger organizations and stronger teams, not to remove the human element that makes great businesses truly great. And then secondly, leaders must learn how to nurture employees without enabling bad habits. Supporting people is important, but maintaining expectations and standards is equally important. And I feel like a lot of businesses get away from that. And one of the things I think leaders are struggling with right now is balancing empathy with discipline. There's a real fear among many leaders that if they don't give employees exactly what they want whenever they want it, their team will leave. So leaders become overly flexible, they lower expectations, they tolerate behaviors that would have been unacceptable in the past. And believe me, I've been in all of these places before. But empathy and standards do not have to be opposites. You can care deeply about your people and still maintain discipline. Great leadership requires both, and it took me a long time to learn that. But believe me, once you believe that and you incorporate it into your business, it will change everything. You can support employees while still expecting professionalism, accountability, hard work, and loyalty. Empathy means understanding people. It does not mean abandoning the standards that allow an organization to function. So the next panel question asked, how do you balance building something sustainable while remaining innovative? And my answer to that one is pretty simple. I believe that innovation is what makes businesses sustainable. Industries evolve, technologies evolve, customer expectations evolve, but if you stop innovating, sustainability disappears. Another panel question asked, how do you balance building something sustainable while remaining innovative? And my answer to that question is really simple. I believe that innovation is what makes businesses sustainable. Industries evolve, technology evolves, customer expectations evolve. If you stop innovating, sustainability disappears. Innovation is not the opposite of stability. It's what drives it and it's what protects it. So the next panel question was, what financial, operational, and leadership shifts are most important right now? I think it's most important to focus on three things. First, you must have operational and financial courage. Leaders must be willing to take risks, both operationally and financially. Nothing changes if nothing changes. This is a philosophy of mine that I have instilled in everyone on my team. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to continue to innovate if you want to remain relevant and build sustainability. So you have to be willing to pivot, try new things, and not be afraid to fail. And when it comes to financial courage, strategic investments drive growth. So if you're avoiding risk entirely, it will lead to stagnation and your industry will eventually consume you. Second, from a leadership perspective, it's important to be relentless, to never give up, to constantly innovate, and to lead the way. Great leaders also focus on we instead of me. They expect excellence, they reward loyalty and hard work, and they are constantly thinking 10 steps ahead of everyone else, while also relentlessly pursuing their objectives. Those are the shifts that I think matter most, and these are the things that I see truly driving success within our organization. So the next question was, how do you personally prepare your organization for change? So my answer to that is preparation, preparation, preparation. Then communication, 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 and then more preparation. Before we implement any changes at any of my businesses, we do extensive research. We also collaborate with our entire leadership team before we do anything, because oftentimes others can shed light on variables that we might not have thought of that we really need to be prepared to address. We anticipate potential pitfalls so the team feels prepared when under stress. We also have to be prepared to hold people's hands throughout the implementation and to pick up the pieces if something doesn't go well, and then to be okay with that. We develop rollout plans that fully communicate what the change is, when it's coming, who's involved, some client talking points, frequently asked questions, training materials, scripts, and full communication plans. We also use AI to help us think through any blind spots, rollout risks, and whether our implementation strategy is actually sound. Sometimes we even test changes with a smaller group of clients or team members before we roll it out company-wide. And then we follow up with the team as it's being implemented, and we do spot checks with clients to make sure the experience ended up being what we intended. Because change rarely fails because of a bad idea. It fails because people were not prepared. So the next question for the panel was, what should leaders look for in a financial or strategic partner, and how do you evaluate which partnerships are worth investing in? Okay, so on this one, I think we should look for a company or a person who is going to fight for you. Someone with integrity and honesty at all costs, someone you can definitely trust, and someone who's brave enough to tell you the truth and not give you the runaround. And when it comes to choosing which partnerships I want to invest my time and resources in, for me, it really comes down to character and the relationship. So I look for genuineness, a personal connection, integrity, professionalism, honesty, and whether someone is a good human. Do they do good in the community? Do they care about their work? And do they care about people other than themselves? Do they follow up? Are they truthful? And frankly, do they know their shit? Because the right partner does not just help you grow, they jump in it with you. They protect you and what you're building, and they champion you and your success all along the way. So another question that was asked is, what resources do business owners underutilize? Two things immediately came to mind for me. The first one is education. I feel like many leaders stop learning once they reach success, and/or they also stop investing in their employees' education and training, and I think that's a mistake. Curiosity is a competitive advantage. We can always learn more, do better, and we can evolve. So education has to always be a top priority. And then secondly, financial literacy. I feel like many business owners do not really understand the financial health of their company, but financial understanding is the foundation of strategic decision making, and understanding your financials is one of the most powerful tools a leader can have. And then one final question was asked: what does building mean to you today? To me, today, building means expanding the Panacea brand at our current location and beyond. It also means creating growth opportunities for my team so that they can fulfill their own dreams. It means bringing healing to a community that desperately needs it, and constantly working on myself and my own relationships, because leadership is never static. It evolves as we evolve. And then finally, a good panel discussion wouldn't be complete without a few rapid fire questions. So they asked me the following: give one word that defines the season you're in right now. For me, that would be growth. Then the next question was one lesson that I wish I had learned earlier. And I said patience. And then they asked if I could speak to my younger self, what would I say? And I said, don't let boyfriends change your path. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but for me, when I was younger, I definitely let personal relationships sidetrack some of my most important decisions. And if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely pause on those decisions and rely on this older, wiser version of myself to take me where I wanted to go faster. And the other lesson I would have taught my younger self is to regulate before responding. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, then definitely go back and listen to my last episode, because that's what that is all about. So as we wrap up today, I want to say that when I think about women who build, I think about three things: building businesses, building people, and building communities. Because the most meaningful work we do as leaders isn't just about success, it's about impact. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me for this fun panel discussion. I hope you found the topics enlightening, directional, and inspiring. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with those you love most. And don't forget to send me your follow-up questions and your own personal leadership thoughts. I love hearing from you. And remember to connect with me on Instagram, visit us at Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique, and continue to explore more Serenity and Fire episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, build with confidence, lead with integrity, and keep balancing serenity with fire. I'm Krista Guageni, and I'll talk with you more in our next episode. At Panacea Luxury Spa Boutique, we don't just offer traditional spa treatments. We create rituals that relax your mind, restore your health, and rejuvenate your spirit. From biohacking technologies to advanced oncology-trained care, everything we do is designed to help you heal on the deepest level with clean, holistic therapies, products, and amenities that are second to none. And right now, you can experience two of my favorites, our whole body LED light bed or hyperbaric oxygen therapies. And as a thank you for listening, you'll get 10% off your first session when you use the code Serenity10 at booking. What is your panacea? Let us help you find it, because true wellness isn't a quick fix, it's a ritual.